Welcome everyone, Greg here with Laser Bear Industries to show how to install, or assemble I should say, the GunCon IR adapters for the GunCon3s, PS3, Mister, whatever you're going to end up using it with. I'm going to show you how to put together one of the PCBs, and the first thing what we're going to put in is the USB ports. So in the little package of USB ports that you get, you're just going to take two of them out first, and you're going to put them just right onto the slots that they go in. So these are a through-hole USB Type-C port, and they do need a little bit of a special technique to kind of get the solder to flow for them. So I just set them in like that, and then I'm just going to flip the board flat onto my work surface. We're going to take our soldering iron, and you just want a good clean tip on your soldering iron. Let me frame this a little bit better. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push both edges of the little through hole connectors, kind of keep the port from moving around too much, and we're going to put just a little bit of solder right on them. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit, try to help you guys out with viewing it. So once you've got a little dot on there, the port's not going to move around, and you can move over to your other port, and you just want to put just a little bit of pressure down so that the ports stay flush when you go to install. And just the same way on this side, put just a little bit of solder in, get that to the flow real nice, and both of those ports are now positioned. Next step is to hit all of the retaining points on it, so you don't have to do as much pressure this time. You can even just let the soldering iron kind of guide you through. And because it's metal housing, it does take a little bit of time for everything to heat up for the solder to flow real nice. But you're just going to go through and get all four of these points nice and soldered down. Nothing too fancy about it. Come back on the other one. Before you go too far, just make sure everything is flush. Not a whole lot to it, just like that. Now the hardest part is you're going to have to flow into these spots, and you're really going to need a good soldering iron. You don't necessarily have to have a high-end one like I do, but a good Kesker or something along the lines that has good heat retention is important, and you need a good solder. So this is I think just the normal Kesker solder, and it's just got to have a good amount of flux in it to get it to seep into these holes, because we have to get it in here. We're only really worried about the outside four on each row, on each side, but it's just good practice to go through and get them all. Not sure how well you can see. With a good solder that has a good amount of flux in it, shouldn't need to do too much more than just slide it across. Now you might remove a little bit of the solder mask, and you'll see kind of a bridge will form like there between those two pins in the middle there. That's not a big deal. That's actually the underlying copper, so you're not damaging anything by doing that. And just come back over to the other side. You're doing the same thing on the other side. Just give it a good brushing across all the pins. We just want it to flow nice and into all of those spots. It's a little warm. And that looks good to me. So now the next step is moving on to the resistor. So you'll get 2 resistors in your pack, and they're just like this. I think they're 33 ohms, nothing fancy. And all you're gonna wanna do is bend the legs, and the resistor just goes right here at the top. Get your legs to go into each one of the 2 holes in the resistor. I also put in a spot for a surface mount resistor, but if you're building these yourself, we sent the 3 holes just to make everything easier. And just give yourself a good little bend on the legs so that they stay in place. And we're just gonna hit it with a touch of solder so that those legs are in place. And just like that, soldering's done on the resistor. So now we're going to come through and cut our legs. Next step is to take the 3 IR LEDs. So if you look at the board, you've got a flat edge with the square pins. The longer leg will go into the square pin on your LED. So line those all up. You're just gonna let them fall in for now, because the hard part comes up when you actually have to put it into the plastic. So once they're all in, just like that, you're gonna take your front cover. It's got the 3 holes in it for the LEDs to shoot through. You're gonna take your LEDs and kinda, the one by itself doesn't really need any help or anything getting into the holes because its hole is just straight through. The other 2 are at angles, and we'll actually be setting their angles before we solder. So once you push them in, you want to just push the board all the way flush, and you're going to take a pair of pliers, and you're just going to push your LED until it can't go any further into the plastic, because that will set the LED at the correct angle. So if you look here, they stick out just a hair, and they're both going to be at the correct angle now that they've been pressed into the sockets that they fit into. And the last step to do is to just push your single guy out. It does not need to be any specific height. You're just wanting it to be, for the most part, perfectly straight, or as close to straight as you can get it. These have a slightly larger angle to their beams than what the original LEDs on the original GunCon transmitters had, so they can be off just a hair and it's not going to hurt anything. But once you've got that, you can use this piece to kind of hold everything flat, and that's nice too because you can kind of get the LEDs to all be, for the most part, lined up. And then you're just going to go in and tack all, at least one leg of each one of your LEDs in place so it doesn't move on you. Just like so. And then you can go back through and hit the other legs, because it should be, for the most part, done. And we're coming back over here. And then we'll just give it a little bit extra solder for those legs that I did the first time through. And just like that, all that's done. You just kind of come back through and trim off your legs. Once your legs are trimmed off, you can put the back cover on. So the back cover pretty much can only go on one way, so all you got to do is set it on like so, and then you're going to take one of these little black screws that were included with your kit, and you can start off by puncturing it through. There's just a little bit of overhang material that helps make the printed hole come out better. And you're just going to punch it through that and then tighten it down. Remember, it's 3D printed plastic, so you can't go super tight. And just like that, the casing is assembled. Next step is to start putting in the hinge pins. So the first section is this just kind of flat piece, and the way that this goes in, you actually flip it upside down, so the textured material or textured edges don't actually line up. And if you look at each side of this side is a larger hole than this side. That is the side that you will put the nail pin in. So these are just hardware store nails. I ended up going with them because they have a slight curve to them. I think they're made out of like wire. And that little bit of curve makes it so everything stays kind of tight when it's put in place, which is the most important part there, because you don't want it to slip. And then you're just going to take a pair of slip jaw pliers, kind of like so. And so I don't mar up the plastic, I just throw a piece of paper underneath the bottom side. And then you kind of come through and use the pliers to press the pin all the way through. It might take a couple of tries to get it kind of in place, but after that's in place, then it should be good to go. Then the next step is to put this piece on. So it's got a little clip that kind of holds your cable in place. Now on this one, you want the textured edges to match. And just like on the other side, you've got a bigger hole on one side and a smaller hole on the other side. And the bigger hole just accommodates the head of the nail. So just like before, we're going to be pushing that nail all the way through, or as far through as we can, and then reset our jaws. And you just want to make sure you keep everything lined up so that when the nail passes through, you don't break through the plastic or anything. It's not super difficult by any means. It's just a little bit on the fiddly side. And then after that, the hinge is pretty durable, stays in place. And when you feed your USB cable in, so this is a magnetic USB cable, and I don't have the end with me, but you can just feed your cable through like so, and now the cable is held in place, and the cable can actually kind of help weigh everything down and hold it in place. It's pretty handy that way. So this was just building one of them. You have to build two, one for each side of the screen. Nice thing about these kits is we're just using standard USB-C ports, and you can use a USB-C to C cable to connect two of these together, and then you only need one USB-A to C cable to power the whole thing. And that's really all there is to it. It should run both sets at a total of about 400 milliamps of power draw. They are pretty powerful LEDs, but you're at 400 milliamps power draw. Most of the time, the TV USB port is going to be able to supply 500 milliamps. So you could even power these off of the onboard USB port on your television. So, and these are a little bit brighter, and the reason I went with brighter LEDs is that with the brighter LEDs, these will be a little bit more, or they'll give you more range. So you can be on a larger television by moving back further and still be picked up by the gun, because they have a brighter infrared LED than what the stock ones were. I can't remember what everything came out to, but overall, not a difficult project. Probably the hardest part is going to be soldering in those USB-C ports, and even that, as long as you've got a good solder, you're not going to have too much hassle doing that part. hopefully this helps you get your GunCon transmitters built. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.